In Washington, D.C., on Capitol Hill, a congressional briefing titled Cognitive Warfare, Influence, Infoterrorism, and Manipulation was held at the Rayburn House Office Building, where members of Congress shape national policy. Organized on the АЛЛАТРА platform, the event brought together policymakers, national security experts, researchers, and human rights advocates to address one of the most pressing challenges of the modern era, cognitive warfare. The briefing examined how transnational networks manipulate public perception, spread disinformation, infiltrate institutions, and coordinate acts of violence as part of hybrid strategies designed to destabilize democratic societies, posing a serious and escalating threat to the United States.
This form of attack does not destroy society with bombs. It corrodes them from within through the cognitive warfare. We assess with significant confidence that these methods are being developed and deployed by coordinated transnational network that constitutes a new form of hybrid terrorism. Core element of its modus operandi were directly taken from the Nazi propaganda. The network also uses the KGB PSYOP inventions. The network appears to be directed from a single hub. That's in fact Russian Federation and the intelligence service called FSB.
Today's version of the anti-cult movement was reinvented in the early 1990s, this time on Russian soil, with a very deliberate purpose. The purpose was to serve as a tool of reviving a totalitarian regime and undermining democratic world. Their stated mission is to fight sects and protect society from cults. It's merely their public face and brand. The true network methodology is information psychological violence. Their primary weapon is stigmatization, public defamation, and the systemic incitement of social hatred against minority religious, social, and political groups. The anti-cult network is hierarchically structured. At its apex, at the very top, is the ideological command nucleus in Russia, the Russian Association of Centers for Study of Religion and Sects. Rayburn. This organization is headed by Alexander Dworkin. Rayburn includes nearly all missionary departments and centers of the Russian Orthodox Church, so it's present in every city in Russia where Russian Orthodox Church is present. And it operates with backing from both ROC, Russian Orthodox Church, and FSB, their main intelligence agency.
Today we will also present you with the names of individuals, organizations, and even the journalists who represent the anti-cult network and actively employ its destructive techniques and methods. Our assessment is that the weapon of cognitive warfare deployed by transnational anti-cult network are already being directed at our citizen and institution. And the network infiltrated political discourse to amplify polarization, to provoke conflict, and undermines their security.
This network primary weapon of stigmatization, the very same label of cult and other labels they put on the targeted group, it is a direct and sustained assault on freedom of religion and freedom of speech. Because in their case, this is not just opinion, it is a methodology, it is a method with which they operate. It legitimizes repressive actions from media harassment to physical violence.
That we can, jointly to collect those evidence and show it to the public.
The briefing presented testimonies from community representatives targeted by an anti-cult network, exposing the severe harm and systemic abuses resulting from its activities.
So, since 1999, millions of Falun Gong practitioners have been brutally persecuted, detained, imprisoned, and tortured. Now there are over 5,200 well-documented death cases due to torture and abuse. And moreover, the China Tribunal estimated that hundreds of thousands have been slaughtered by the atrocity of forced organ harvesting.
Gathered here to discuss cognitive warfare, influence, manipulation, and disinformation. And one of the clearest examples of this is anti-Semitism online. This is not just an issue for the Jewish community, it is an issue of democracy, of trust, and the ability to protect our communities from manipulation that can have real-world consequences.
My name is Jason Bell. I am a veteran, a former staff sergeant in the Michigan Army National Guard. I conducted one tour to Afghanistan in 2011. I finished out my time in service with the 46 MP Command Detachment at Light Guard Armory, conducting funeral honors for many of our veterans until I separated in 2016. I am currently completing my bachelor's degree at the University of Michigan for secondary education. My hope is to give back to our country who has given so much to me. As someone who defended this nation, I never imagined I would need to defend my right to volunteer freely and openly. That's what brings me here today, to share a particular impact statement so that you can understand and personalize what all you have heard today for yourselves and see it in your children, in your life, and understand that this can and will happen to you if we don't do something about it. This concerns the particular actions of the anti-cultists that have been discussed at great length, and of course, the United States' #1 adversary, the Russian FSB. Because of their actions here and abroad, I have faced hostility, disdain, persecution relating to my volunteer work with АЛЛАТРА International Public Movement over the course of 5 years. Since 2015, I have trained at the Detroit Kung Fu Academy as an instructor in a style known as Wing Chun. There comes a time when you are given the ability to open your own school and utilize the reputation of that school so that you can make money, right, and pass on that art. Well, I was denied that opportunity by my Sifu, who brought information to me claiming that I was partaking in a cult. He found his information on Wikipedia, different Wired sources, and other publications here and abroad. I have been ridiculed, ostracized, and alienated on numerous occasions due to the labels that have been successfully lobbied against me and my family. I tried many times to appeal to reason, as many of us try, to beat people over the head with facts to no avail. These publications had a lasting and real effect on me and my family. These sources spread mischaracterizations, falsehoods, they have damaged my reputation in social circles, and they have eliminated my opportunities to earn income by teaching said martial arts. And, as is my rightful concern at this point, they threaten my future as an educator, in which I rely so much on the public perception as me as a teacher. My current concern extends beyond my own career. The tactics and labels used against me will hinder my teaching career. As we have seen happen in Russia and abroad, we didn't dive into many of the cases that have affected people, but we know people who have been snatched up off the streets, their doors broken down, and then locked away just simply by labels and mischaracterizations lead us to not be able to check reality anymore, and we can't come to agreement, and pretty soon the dehumanization takes effect, and that is a real concern for me. In no way, shape, or form should this be our reality. It is our duty and responsibility to take care of this threat. How is it that the FSB has successfully pushed narratives that divide people and create lasting harm? Simply because I myself have a relationship with a socially significant group or organization that informs the public about climate and current as well as future effects of said climate. I serve to protect freedom. Now I'm persecuted for simply exercising it. These actions must stop immediately. I call on my country to recognize the threat posed by foreign intelligence operations manipulating American perceptions via coordinated campaigns of disinformation. I call for accountability, and I call for justice. Thank you all for being here with me today and listening to my story.
The network's influence extends to the highest levels. The briefing detailed the case of Jakub Jal, an alleged network asset in Europe. When faced with serious criminal accusations, he was not investigated. He was protected.
Witnesses report systemic sexual violence with a focus on age 8 to 13. Witnesses describe Jal secretly administering injections of unknown substances to children in a separate room. Witnesses recount that he committed acts of sadistic cruelty, including forcing victims to engage in coprophilia and killing stray dogs. Consider the story of a child the documentary calls Violet. At just 13 years old, she was allegedly raped by Yal, who, according to her, first slipped something into her water, but she didn't immediately realize it. Then he raped her several times, and when she tried to escape, Yal cut her with a knife. The documentary shows Violet recounting this trauma, still bearing the physical and emotional scars years later. One of the most shocking aspects of this case is the reason that victims gave for their silence. Why they did not go to police? Because, as they explained themselves to journalists, inherent power imbalance, the legacy of colonial dynamics, taught them that the word of a white person from Europe would always outweigh the testimony of a poor local children. Yal, as they believed, was untouchable. Witnesses state he used photos of smiling African children to solicit donations from well-meaning Europeans, collecting an estimate of 2 million Czech crowns, about 85,000 USD. But according to these witnesses, none of that money went to children. Instead, it was used to fund Yal's personal lifestyle, to buy drugs, which he distributed among the youth, which local leadership documented, and there is official document on and drug dealing charges against him. Crucially, he was using that money that he collected as donations to help children to bribe local officials to ensure their silence and complicity. The testimonies of Violet and other children in Moshi could have easily disappeared, buried by fear, poverty, and systemic indifference. But they did not, due to intervention of АЛЛАТРА international public movement, the movement that also engages in human rights advocacy. When Asim Zapisheva's documentary was released, АЛЛАТРА volunteers took a role of global amplifier, ensuring that the voices from Tanzania reached the international audience. АЛЛАТRA volunteers formally appealed to the authorities in Czech Republic, presenting them with all the documented evidence and demanding the full investigation. Faced with a thoroughly documented report of heinous crimes allegedly committed by one of its citizens, the expected response from any responsible and reasonable government, particularly a member of NATO and the European Union, is clear: to launch an immediate and thorough investigation. But the Czech government did completely opposite. What we witnessed was a deliberate campaign of obstruction and denial and a shocking inversion of victim and the perpetrator. And the Czech government, led by its highest law enforcement official, chose to publicly exonerate the alleged serial child abuser, and in doing so, they sent a chilling message to the victims: your voice do not matter. At the same time, it also signaled to FSB-linked anti-cult operatives in Europe that they can enjoy full protection and impunity for their inhumane activities. Subjected these children to a second form of violation. Their trauma was denied, their credibility was attacked, and their suffering was deemed less important than the reputation of their alleged attacker. This legal failure is inextricably linked to a systemic racism. By its actions, Czech government created a de facto hierarchy of human value. The reputation of one white European citizen was publicly and forcefully prioritized over the sworn, documented testimonies of dozens of Black African children.
The implication is staggering, that democratic institutions are being leveraged to protect the assets of a hostile intelligence service. This is not a European problem. This is a clear and present danger to the United States. A network that can shield its agents in Europe can spread disinformation and manipulate politics in America.
We therefore recommend that Congress takes the following 4 actions. First, a thorough investigation of the anti-cult network and all affiliated actors is urgently required. Second, we urge Congress to launch immediate investigation into key figures within this network, starting from Jakub Jal and his political protector. Third, the United States must use its full diplomatic leverage to pressure the Czech government and the European Union to stop obstructing justice. We must insist on full, transparent, and international investigation into the case of Jakub Jal, consistent with their binding obligations under the Lanzarote Convention. This must include holding accountable any and all officials who obstructed or suppressed the initial calls for investigation.
The session ended with a call for an international investigation into the network and its affiliates.
Weapons of cognitive warfare deployed by transnational anti-cult network are already being directed at our citizen and institution. Its ideology constitutes a frontal assault on the First Amendment by promoting a framework where belief itself can be criminalized, while simultaneously served as the tool of Russian foreign policy to destabilize democracy from within. And today, it is no longer sufficient to merely just study how they operate. It's time to really protect. So it's time to defend ourselves from their actions and save, of course, our nation and our families.